Hey everyone, Elizabeth here. I wanted to do a Twin Peaks video. The third season ended a few weeks ago, and like a lot of people, I have a lot of thoughts about it, and also just about Twin Peaks in general. So I thought I'd do a video about it. It might be a little spoilery, so if you haven't seen it, if you're planning to see it, you might want to click away. So where to start? I got into Twin Peaks because of my brother, James. He's a very, very big fan of David Lynch, the creator of Twin Peaks. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with David Lynch. I wouldn't say hate is a little bit of a strong of a word, but I'm a little hesitant when I watch something by him, simply because one of the first things I saw was Eraserhead, and that movie pretty much put me on edge with David Lynch in general. But as far as Twin Peaks, I wanted to give it a try because my brother spoke very highly of it. So I watched the original series probably about 10 or 11 years ago, so it had been a while. It's pretty cool how the movie, which was after the second season ended, kind of with a cliffhanger, and the movie was supposed to kind of tie up some loose ends. It's been a while since I saw the movie, but I remember it had a little bit of a nicer ending. But she did say, Laura, to Special Agent Dale Cooper, "I'll see you again in 25 years. So it's pretty cool that 25 years later they were going to have the third season. It didn't happen exactly 25 years later. I think it took a couple of years because there were some issues with David Lynch. He wanted to spend a lot of money. Showtime didn't want to spend that much, and then they were going to do it without him, and it was this big controversy. But he ended up being on board, and he needed to be, because I think it's his greatest work. And even if you're not a big Lynch fan, something about Twin Peaks is, I don't know, it's like very unique. It's sort of a feeling. It's a small town. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. Very mysterious. A lot of puzzles, that kind of thing. And I don't know. It's got its own feeling to it. So even if you're not a big fan of his movies, you might want to give Twin Peaks a try. It's pretty cool. So anyway, I guess I should start with David Lynch. He has been known to be weird, and a lot of his stuff can be very confusing, including Twin Peaks. There's a lot of fan theories out there. They have forums. They're always talking about, what's going on, because he doesn't really explicitly explain what's going on ever. Even in the third season, a lot of people thought, well, maybe he'll wrap it up, maybe he'll reveal some things, and he did reveal some things, but it seems like the more he revealed, the more questions that we had. And I think he kind of does that because he's the type of artist, to me, you don't really see a lot of artists like this, where he's not really concerned about explicitly explaining his story. He's definitely telling you a story, but he's not telling it to you in the old-fashioned way where you have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then everything gets wrapped up nicely in a bow at the end. He's more just showing you scenes. It's almost like stumbling on something that maybe you weren't meant to see. And I think that's what Twin Peaks is. It's almost like you're witnessing something and it's kind of neat because you're not exactly sure what you're witnessing. You're just sort of watching, and then he kind of leaves it open to interpretation. And I kind of like that style. You don't really see it very much because I think most artists, they want people to like their work. So they base it a lot on feedback, and they base it on, okay, I care what people think, which I think it changes the art a little bit. It kind of takes away from its pureness. And I think Lynch, the reason he stands out is because he doesn't do that. He doesn't care what people think. He's not there for you or your feelings. Obviously he appreciates his fans, but he's ultimately like, I'm not doing this to make you feel good. And that doesn't sit well with a lot of people because a lot of us, life is very difficult and we want to escape from reality. So when we read a book or we watch a movie or a show, we want to feel good. Even if maybe there's a little sadness, a little confusion, we'll go through it. We'll sit through it if we know at the end, everything kind of ties in and we have that aha moment. But you don't necessarily get that with Lynch. You maybe a little bit, but it's more like, what did I just watch than anything. So you have to be patient. He reminds me a lot of this author that I haven't finished this series I'm reading. The author is Gene Wolfe, and he's a fantasy author, and he wrote a series of books called The Book of the New Sun. I'm probably about halfway through them, but it takes me forever to finish a series because I'm always reading too many, which is fine. I'm not in a hurry, but I don't read his books often because they're almost incoherent. I mean, incoherent is not the right word. They're very, very well written, very beautiful, dreamlike, but it's so dreamlike that you're almost like, what just happened? Like, I'll read a few chapters and I'll be like, how did we get from point A to point C? I'm like confused. Where was B? I missed that part. And a lot of people have said his books are better to be read several times. It's like you just have to, you miss a lot of things. It's very subtle, very dreamlike, and much like dreams, it can be nightmarish at times. And I think David Lynch is probably a good equivalent to that in the sense of someone in film. He does the same thing. It's very dreamlike. It can turn nightmarish. It doesn't always make sense. And again, some people don't want that, And I tend to not want that, but occasionally I get bored with just, sort of the same stuff over and over. I think it's very refreshing sometimes to watch something or read something that it's almost like you go on a trip. It's like you're on drugs. You're not on drugs, but you feel like you are. And I think you get that with David Lynch. He sort of takes you out of your comfort zone and into a new element. So, and I think that's why I like Twin Peaks. I think originally I was just watching it because my brother loved it so much. I'm like, oh, let me give it a chance. But the more I watch it, and especially after watching the third season, I feel like, you know what? I'm watching this because I actually like it. It's weird. I get frustrated with it sometimes, but I like it. And that's kind of how David Lynch is for me. Sometimes I'm like, and then other times I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. So, a lot of people are like, so did you like the new season? A lot of people didn't like it because they said it didn't feel like the old Twin Peaks, and definitely it has a totally new feeling. If you're looking for the old Twin Peaks, you might have a little bit here and there, little glimpses, but it's a whole new show. And at first I didn't like that. I was one of those people that was like, oh, why isn't this like the original, this and that and the other? But the more I watched it, I realized, you know what, this is Twin Peaks too. It's just sort of a different sort of viewpoint. And I thought about this this story, and I'm probably not going to tell it correctly, but it's like about these people who are either blindfolded or they're blind, they can't see, and they're all washing an elephant. And one gets the trunk, one gets the tail, the ears. So they ask the person, what's an elephant? And the first person's like, well, this is an elephant, it's the trunk. And the other one's like, no, this is the elephant, it's the ears. And so on and so forth. But the point is that they're all the elephant. It's just different parts of the elephant. And I feel like the new season of Twin Peaks is still Twin Peaks. It's just through a different viewpoint, a different lens, maybe even a different filter. So if you can look at it like that in an open mind, you'll end up liking both, but in different ways, and they do different things for you. So I definitely think that they're totally compatible and connected. And I'm now rewatching the original series. When we found out that the new Twin Peaks was coming out, I wanted to originally rewatch the original series so that I would be caught up. But I didn't get to do that. I only got to watch the first season. I didn't watch the second season or the movie. So I was a little bit lost during the third season. But I think even if I had rewatched them, I still would have been lost because, again, this is David Lynch we're talking about. But now, actually, my husband is watching Twin Peaks for the very first time. So I'm now going back and watching it again. I'm like starting to see things that I missed. And it's sort of like every time I watch an episode of Twin Peaks, I'm more like, oh, so that's what that meant. You know, it's just he's very, very subtle. Again, I think artists that do that, it's risky because a lot of people don't want to rewatch something. They don't want to reread something. They want to be told, this is what you're watching, this is what you're reading. They don't want to have to work, you know? Fair enough. But with David Lynch, you have to do a little bit. It's almost like being in college too. It's kind of funny, but it's like when you're watching Twin Peaks, the stuff that you think, oh, that's not important, you know, that's the stuff like in college, you think, oh, that's not going to be on the test, and you don't study for it. But in Twin Peaks, every little thing could be something really important. You never know. So I think the more you watch it, the more it makes sense. David Lynch's mind, the dots start to connect, as, you know, unlikely as that may seem. And going back to that author, Gene Wolfe, you know, I think it's the same thing. I think that's why I'm confused a lot when I'm reading his books. And I think it's because there's so much subtlety in it. And we're not used to that. I think, especially Americans, we kind of want it. We want it now. And, you know, we're not really good on the patience thing. So even this other show I'm thinking about now, Carnival, which is funny because it had Michael J. Anderson. He was in the original Twin Peaks. And that show was very slow moving. Probably too slow for some people, which is why like the second season they like really sped things up and it was really weird. But I think there's something in that whole slow sort of unveiling of things. If you give it a chance, I think you'll find, like Twin Peaks, you'll find that there's something in there worth going through. And granted, you know, the first season was great. It was very short. The second season was very long, and then they revealed the killer right in the middle of the season. David Lynch originally didn't want to do that, but the network had a lot of control. They were like, look, you got to reveal the killer. It's taking too long. So the second season had a little rough spots here and there. But I think the third season, because they gave Lynch full control, I think you can really see what he originally wanted to do. And he originally wanted it to be even more weird than it was. I think the original Twin Peaks was very watered down in a lot of sense. So the new one might shock some people because it's just very out there. Like, there was one episode that I was like, I had to look away a few times. It was the one with the Got a Light guy. And it wasn't so much the violence, it was just there was so much flashing in it. It was like you can't watch that if you have epilepsy. Because I felt like, wow, they should have put a warning at the beginning of this. And it was funny, I was watching it with my brother and my cat, and I was worried about my cat looking at it because my cat likes to watch TV, but luckily he was bathing during those scenes, so he was fine. But anyway, so why am I talking about all this stuff? It's very dreamlike. It doesn't always make sense. It doesn't always have. It's more of a circle. Again, like traditional books and movies and stuff. It's like here's the beginning, the middle, the end. David Lynch is more like, to me, it's more realistic because it's more like life. It's just a cycle, you know, and things happen and maybe they don't make sense right now, but maybe they'll make sense 20 years from now, you know. And so there's some sort of like a deep feeling to that. But I like the whole leaving it open to interpretation, which is, I guess, a formula in itself. I think it takes bravery to do that as an artist because, you know, a lot of people would be like, what the hell? Why are you doing this? You know, why? Like even the ending of the third season, you know, it was kind of, it felt like someone was messing with you because it's like, it seemed like it was going to end very nicely and everything was going to tie up, and all these years that we waited, you know, it was be like, oh, it's going to be so nice and Laura's going to finally be able to rest, you know, in peace and, you know, this and that. And then as soon as you start thinking it's going to be that way, you know, Lynch, he turns it upside down because that's how life is. I think he's more realistic in that sense. Life, you know, as soon as you get comfortable, shit happens, you know, and I think that pretty much sums up the season finale of Twin Peaks. It's almost like whatever is trying to be resolved is still trying to be resolved, and it might never be resolved. But it's not about the end, it's about the journey. And, you know, I don't want to get too deep into it, but it's a good show. It's different. I don't know, you know, I'm trying to think what else I wanted to say about it. I haven't really said very much, but just that it's weird. And this is turning out to be, wow, like the longest video I've done. So one other thing I wanted to mention about another artist, Seal, from the guy that did that, The Kiss from the Rose from a Grave or whatever. Why am I bringing him up? I remember when I bought his cassette, you can see how long ago this was. Inside he had written, you know, I don't like to provide the lyrics for my songs because I want people, when they hear my songs, you know, sometimes you hear a song and you're like, oh, I love this song, I love the lyrics, and then you find out you had the lyrics wrong, maybe a few lines or whatever. He didn't want to box people in. He didn't want his songs to have an agenda. He's like, whatever you hear, that's the lyrics. I don't want to spoil that for you. And I feel that that's what kind of David Lynch and also this author Gene Wolfe, I think they're sort of showing you something, and then but they're not telling you what it is, you know. And then, you know, 10 people might watch the same thing or read the same thing, and they might come up with completely different conclusions, and that's okay. I think these artists, they want that. They want it to be whatever you see. So whatever you see, that's what it's supposed to be, you know. And maybe you look at it again and you notice things you didn't notice before, and it gets even deeper and deeper each time you look at it. And I really think that's cool, you know, because that's kind of what life is. A lot of life, you know, a lot of us go through difficult times and we all suffer, but a lot of it is perspective, you know, and I think that's more real than a lot of these fairy tales and fantasy books that we read for pleasure, movies that we watch, yeah, it's nice to have a story where the prince rescues the princess from, the dragon or whatever. He slays the dragon. But, life doesn't work that way. I think life is more like a David Lynch film. I think it is weird. And he captures those little moments of uniqueness that you have to be there and experience it. And it's really a feeling more than anything. That's the way I would describe David Lynch and Twin Peaks. So, I'm very glad that I saw it. As far as if there's going to be a fourth season, the last season did end kind of with like, oh my God, like really, like another sort of cliffhanger thing. So theoretically, he could do a fourth season. But by the same token, I think he could end it here and never do anything else about Twin Peaks, and people would have enough to work with for a lifetime. I don't think he needs to do another season. If he does, I'll watch it. But I don't think it's necessary because it's kind of that same circle where, it's kind of like Seinfeld, like the show where nothing ever, it's a show about nothing. Twin Peaks is kind of like that. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like you can keep talking about it and showing stories from it. It's just going to keep going, and it's just going to get more and more bizarre. So I think the more with shows, if you have too many seasons, I think that takes away because it seems like a lot of filler and like then things might jump the shark and this and that. And I think less is more in this case. So I hope that's the way Lynch is thinking. But again, who knows what he's thinking? The guy is weird. I just thought about this movie that also my brother showed me, which I love. It's called Naked Lunch, and now I'm going off on a tangent, but it's connected. It's based on a book, I think, written in the 50s. I want to say the guy's name was Burroughs. I'm not sure. And I don't remember the director's name, but I know he's like considered the David Lynch of Canada. But I've only seen the one film by him, and I loved it. It's one of my favorite movies, but it's so weird. But the ending is like, it's that whole, we've been here before, deja vu, Groundhog Day. If you ever saw that movie with Bill Murray, it's like, we keep getting chance after chance to get it right, and if we're still here, it's because we haven't gotten it right. We haven't figured it out. And I feel like the way the third season of Twin Peaks ended with Laura, I feel like she's still out there. She's still lost. She's still struggling. Dale Cooper is trying to bring her home. He's trying to protect her. He wants her to rest, and she can't. And a lot of us feel like that in our daily lives, and who knows, maybe we've lived already multiple lives and we're still struggling. Whatever you believe, it doesn't really matter, because nobody really knows what happens when we die, but there is always that struggle, and I feel like Twin Peaks sort of, it really shows that struggle of, we've been here before, and we're fighting the same demons, and we're having the same outcome, and it's like, is this ever going to end? And that's why I feel like he could end the show now, because theoretically it doesn't look like she's, I don't know. I'm not an expert. I don't read this, like, I don't know what's going on. I'm so lost with Twin Peaks, which is why I'm glad I'm watching it again, because I'm hoping maybe this time I'll pick something else up. But, it's an experience. It's a ride. It's like going to a carnival and going on a ride, a scary ride, and then you get off and then you go back to reality. Except with David Lynch, you don't, reality is also weird. It's not just the ride and you get off and everything's fine. It just continues. It's like a continuous ride, and it can make you uncomfortable. Too much of that, you might say, I need a break. I need something light and fluffy to watch, or a chick flick or something. Not that I like chick flicks, because I don't, but you know, you might want something a little bit not so heavy, I guess is what I'm thinking. So I think I covered everything. I'm sure I forgot something. I can always do a little part 2 if I think of anything, but I've been talking for a while and I'm getting hungry now. I'm probably gonna go eat dinner, and then we're gonna go to Walgreens and do some shopping. They've got the Halloween stuff out, so I don't know if you can see, I got my Halloween shirt. I'm always very cheerful around this time of the year. I'm like always really, like, I turn into another person. I love the fall. But anyway, that's not what this video is about. This video is about Twin Peaks. So definitely give it a chance. And don't expect answers. You know, just expect an experience, and just enjoy it. You know, even if it's sometimes you feel like, what's going on, and why do I feel weird, and why am I clutching my chair, and you know, why am I having nightmares? You know, it's like life. There's gonna be lights and there's gonna be darks, and there's gonna be highs and lows, you know, and that's, I think David Lynch, he I think he's good at showing that. So I hope you like this video. I'm kind of doing more videos now about random things. It's pretty cool, just thoughts on things, and I really wanted to do a Twin Peaks one. It's been a few weeks since the season finale. I really liked the reactions on Twitter. People were losing their minds. The memes and stuff, they were like, what did you do to me, Lynch? What did you do to me? But you know, you kind of know when you're going into it. You know, I don't know what happened to him when he was a kid, but he's got, you know, interesting thoughts. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope, if you are a Twin Peaks fan, that I don't know, you enjoyed the new season. And if you're not, if I didn't spoil it too much for you, I hope you give it a chance, because it's definitely worth it. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye.